What's up, Detroit? Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from StreamYard. I'm Sam Robinson. Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We're here today with Charles Erza Ferrell, Deshaun Jones, and Kenny Green, all here virtually to discuss the upcoming Concert of Colors event happening at the Salinas Casey Center right here on Detroit's East Side. Welcome to Authentically Detroit, everyone. Two-time Inkster Mayor Byron Nolan announced this week he's running for Michigan's 12th congressional district, currently represented by U.S. Rep. Rashida Tlaib. The Inkster mayor cited Tlaib's lack of support for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. He told me last week that Rashida did not represent our best interests. He said, "I can't stand when someone lets you down to that magnitude." He says that he thought that was the reason Tlaib's lack of endorsement of Harris was the reason that Democrats lost Michigan. He said, "Look at the numbers for Jill Stein and how many people sat home." In Dearborn, the 12th district's largest city, Trump received 43% to Kamala Harris's 36%, and Jill Stein took 15% of the vote. However, Tlaib won 62% of that vote in Dearborn, far outpacing Harris. In an interview last week, Nolan told me that the stakes were too high for Tlaib not to encourage voters to turn out for Harris. Tlaib did endorse the Democratic ticket, but did not formally endorse Kamala Harris specifically. How does Detroit city officials say the process to get
for the people we're trying to attract at the expense of the people who are already there? If you are a parent or a young family, I've got my kids, both of my daughters who live here have children, you're going to need a place to live. And the question is, do you want to live in one of those studio 1 or 2 bedroom houses he's built downtown and made inclusive because it's available for people at 80% of the AMI? Most of those units, by the way, are studios. Most of the units that are made affordable that the city has built over the past 12 years are studio apartments. And it's important that we understand that. Now, there were some affordable units that were also developed. But if so many young families find that if I want to buy a home that's newly developed, I have to leave the city of Detroit to do that. And so even as we were attracting people in from the suburbs to go into the downtown, we didn't have a strong policy to bring people back into the neighborhoods. One of the things the city can do is to streamline the process for building homes because time is money and all of the hurdles that you have to jump through, extend the time. Another thing the city can do is prioritize when they put money into housing, that they put money into housing in neighborhoods and not just downtown. Because the reality is every single new development that you've seen, every single new development in the city of Detroit that you've seen over the past $12 has been subsidized, at least in part, by taxpayers. Every single one. So whether or not we could afford to live there, whether or not Detroiters who were already here are the ones living here or not, we paid for it. And so it's a matter of priorities, and I think it's a really good idea. The aggressive demolition has been very traumatic for a lot of people in neighborhoods that I work with. I don't know many people who think, let's tear down homes before we try to save them. I know that my organization is actively involved in investing in new homes and pulling them out of the demolition pipeline, which has been my advocacy. Now, what I will say is that we're going through a process now. We've done the surveys. The city, I think ECN partner with several other people to conduct surveys for the city. We hosted the meeting on neighborhoods for the city, and the city has gotten a lot of feedback around what they want to see happen. And those of us who served on leadership positions during the transition are going to go through all of that data and help inform what the actual transition plans are going to be. But I think it's a strong move. By the time this podcast comes out, I will be on the Detroit Land Bank Authority board. They're voting on it tomorrow morning, but I was already approved by the Internal Operations Committee to move forward. So I think it's pretty much going to happen. I'm going to be in a position to actually help determine who develops these homes, because we have policies right now that make it more difficult for people nonprofits to get involved in the housing development process, and hopefully we're going to make it easier. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be the best thing for Detroit. That's how you grow population, build up our neighborhoods.
I think one really interesting aspect that was mentioned, BC wants to offer pre-approved home designs, so the owners of lots don't have to hire their own architect. And I think that's really interesting, the idea of selling lots to neighborhood lots to developers to build with the intention of building housing instead of buying lots for purposes that perhaps 10 years ago people would have said, oh, build an urban garden or buy your neighbor lot. Those lots are going to become perhaps more valuable with the incentivization, incentives on developers coming in and taking them, right?
And then the other thing is that you don't have to go through design review. Design review is a process that you have to go through. Anytime you want to get a building permit, there's a whole set of processes. And so the city has already said, we approve this design for this kind of lot, it really shortens the time frame. The other thing is a lot of people want to see manufactured housing in the city because manufactured housing is theoretically less expensive than stick built. The challenge is that the city does not necessarily know how to move those approvals quickly. If you pre-approve the process, then you can build more quickly, bring them in, and have those homes built more affordably. Because one of the big barriers to 1,000 homes is cost. It's much more expensive to build a home today than it was 20 years ago. And so we're going to have to adjust for that.
Yeah. Charles, I see you have some thoughts down there. I think, your perspective is interesting on this. If you want to say anything about what you know about building homes in Detroit specifically. I mean, the state has a shortage of homes. It's something that Governor Whitmer has talked about. MISHDA is certainly sort of working in lockstep with the city to accomplish this goal. What do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, obviously, Donna has much more detailed research and understanding of Detroit house market as a person who was born in what was called historically the Black Bottom, not far from where our event will be taking place on J Street, around Waterloo and McDougal, and having lived on the east side of Detroit in the zip code of 48224 during a very critical time during Detroit Rebellion and beyond. I have a perspective of seeing the major shift in demographics that's happened in Detroit. So when you talk about building population, sometimes I don't recognize the communities based on the demographic shift and based on gentrification. So I do know that some of the new home developments will cost more than what perhaps those people who have lived in those traditional neighborhoods can afford. So
they certainly will.
You're going to see a dramatic shift of the face of Detroit, which has historically at the height in the 1950s was 2 million. And of course, the shift in terms of work from auto industry to tech and some of the new levels of work, now the displacement of workers with AI. So there's a lot to be considered on what Detroit will look like.
Right. So one of the things that
developments.
So you can't control the cost. Every apartment they're building costs about $300,000 per unit, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't control the cost. The costs of construction are ridiculous. What you do is you subsidize the cost so that government takes its money and it says, okay, if it costs $200,000 to build this, we will put $50,000 in to close the gap. I have a little story to share. We purchased 4 homes, pulled them out of the demolition pipeline on one street. And when we looked at the homes, it cost us, even a existing home that was about to be demolished, cost us about $180,000, $185,000, something like that, to renovate. And that's expensive, right? So we got $50,000 in subsidy. We brought it down. Then we got another $10,000 in subsidy. We brought it down so we can sell it for $125,000. And we didn't have any real estate comps in the neighborhood that were close to $125,000. I looked on Zillow a couple weeks ago, and the house just next door to this house that we just developed just sold for $124,000. We got a comp just by that redevelopment. And I don't know how they were able to do it because the real estate market is not, the appraisal process is not so strict that you have to stay within a neighborhood. Sometimes you can go into an adjacent neighborhood. But they were able to sell that house or get financing for that house. But what we're doing is we're using land contracts. And so we're going to sell by a beneficial land contract with terms designed to protect both parties, and then give people 5 years to become bankable and wait for the real estate market to catch up, at which point they can get a mortgage and buy us out. There's strategies to get around it. That's all I'm saying. You can do that. There's many other strategies that people are using to make it possible. Down payment assistance is something that's also opened up. When the city puts its mind to do something, it happens. And so when this mayor said, we're going to demolish all these homes, he did. Now we have a new mayor that says we're going to build all these homes. And I have every confidence that if we all come together, it's going to happen. We have to see it happen. And hopefully in those 1,000 homes, we're also talking about rehabbing and putting back into the market the vacant and abandoned homes that under another administration would have been torn down.
Sure. I want to segue to our next story. Inkster Mayor Byron Nolan is running for Congress. He's running in the 12th Congressional District. That's currently represented by U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib. Donna, you and Rashida have a great relationship.
Yes,
I would describe you as a supporter of Rashida Tlaib. There are sort of a small but vocal group of opponents of Rashida, and they are sort of seemed like to me, based on the Twitter response that I got, I think over 115,000 people saw my story on Inkster Mayor Byron Nolan. A lot of the Kamala Harris K-Hive fan club getting in on the Rashida bashing. A lot of people don't like Rashida because she did not endorse Kamala Harris. For better or worse, would Rashida Tlaib endorsing Kamala Harris won Michigan for Kamala Harris? Perhaps not. Even if it did, would that have swung the election in Kamala Harris's favor? No. We know that no. Michigan could have swung Democrat and Trump still would have won. Regardless of how you feel on the presidential election, there's a new election coming up, and it is happening this year. And so this one is going to be something that we watch out for in the campaign finance world, because guess who? AIPAC has been trying to unseat Rashida Tlaib for a long time because they do not like her anti-Israel policies. Byron Nolan told me that it's too toxic. He is running to represent Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, he said. And if he's running to represent those communities, he cannot, in good conscience, in to his own words, based on our interview, he does not. I would not describe him as pro-Israel outright. He's told me that he's anti-war. He told me that he does not agree with the Netanyahu government, and he told me that he would return AIPAC money. However, he did say that if they spend on the race in kind, there's nothing I can do about that. But it's going to be a race that people across the country look at and say, could Rashida Tlaib actually lose? And a lot of people that are here
absolutely
in
not.
the 12th. Yeah, right.
Absolutely not. I mean, do people talk on both sides of their mouth? Either she has enough power to swing a whole state to not vote for Trump, or at which point he can't win, or her vote
she's
doesn't
irrelevant.
matter. She's relevant.
They'll say she does nothing,
so
and
funny.
she doesn't care about black people, and they'll say all these things. I hear it every day.
I know, because you're talking to all the wrong people, but you're talking to one right now. Let me tell you something. On Saturday, Rashida formed an organization, the Mary Turner Center for Advocacy, along with Stephanie Chang. And on Saturday, they honored me with the Night of Donor Community Justice Award. So I'm really honored by them. And that's just one of the ways. But Rashida, if you look at the money that people bring home, every year, Congress people bring home money from congressional project funds. Rashida brings more money to her communities than any other congressperson in the state. And most of the people receiving that money, most of the organizations receiving that money, serve Black people. So that's just one of the ways. Rashida has been at the state fighting on behalf of the environmental justice of people on the east side of Detroit and all Black community. Even before I knew we had an issue, she was there. During the pandemic, she opened up, right before then, during the pandemic. It was during the pandemic. She opened up an office, a service office in my building, in the Stoudemire Wellness Hub, to provide service to people who needed help getting their Social Security, getting a passport, appealing any type of federal ruling. And they were active. They provide more direct service than just about anybody. So when you talk about why people love Rashida, it's because she fights for them. In the political class, in the Black political class, a lot of people don't like her. But in the hood, they do. I promise you. And when she wins by tremendous margins. The final thing I'm going to say about this
is Brenda Jones. She got 34% in 2020.
Yeah, 34%. Rashida is a Palestinian woman. If anybody who believes that, and she has family still living in Palestine. She grew up in Detroit. She's southwest Detroit, but she's Palestinian. And her people are being bombed. People are calling it a genocide. Well, I know it's genocide, but I don't know if we should make it that important. Seems like a silly thing to say. If anybody has the right to stand and protest and stand and make those demands, it would be a person who has direct impact, whose family, whose community, whose history is directly impacted. Because I promise you, if somebody was bombing my people, I'd be fighting for them. That's what I want. Why would you fight for me and not for you? We can't make this bigger than it is. The reason that Democrats lost in so many places is not because of Rashida Tlaib or the movement, the undocumented movement. What is it?
Uncommitted.
Uncommitted movement.
Uncommitted.
And actually, uncommitted movement. And she did not oppose or did not encourage people to vote for other people. But I'm a person.
She supported the Democratic ticket. I mean, she supported the Democratic ticket. She did not informally endorse Kamala Harris, though. And a lot of the Kamala Harris fans who, Donna, I don't know, are you a part of the K-Hive fan club? I mean, you were out there supporting Kamala Harris. But,
I supported her. I supported her. But I'm not a K-Hive. I'm not a beehive. I don't get in hives, okay? I'm about justice. And whoever is bringing
You're not
justice,
a stand?
I'm for them. I'm not. And quite honestly, I don't even want to say this, but I was not the biggest fan of Kamala Harris before she got into the race. When she did, I was a fan of hers. I'm a very progressive Democrat. I'm probably to the left of most people, and therefore her policies did not align with mine in some areas. Do I wish that she had said something that demonstrated some acknowledgement of genocide in Palestine? Yes. But remember, she's running for office, not Rashida Tlaib. And when you're running for office, you have a responsibility and an opportunity to make the case. I don't blame Kamala. There's a news media that was aligned against her, and a lot of forces are aligned against her. And it's still not clear a woman can be president of the United States. But don't put it off on another woman when the other woman doesn't win. That's all I'm saying. And, like I said, for my friends, I will always stand for them because my friends have stood for me. And Rashida has been there. In 2022, I believe, I was going to Sweden. I needed a passport. And I couldn't get my passport. She was representing District 12. I called her office and said, I need a passport. She got me an appointment the next day. And it's not me. She does this for so many people. When the person drove their car into my building in 2023, and you were the first reporter there, and I posted it on Facebook because the police weren't responding, Rashida called me up and said, I'm calling the FBI. And she got the FBI involved in trying to support me and my organization in getting police response time. We never got the kind of response we should have, but I will never not stand for my friends. And I don't even know who this guy is.
Inkster Mayor Byron Nolan. He's an attorney. He was the two-time mayor of Inkster. He was reelected a couple years back. When I first met him, he was representing Jewel Jones as his legal counsel while he was fighting the drunk driving case after he was pulled over with his pants down, telling the state troopers that he knew the governor, so he's going to get off and get all of them in trouble. So that's how I first met Byron Nolan.
Hats off to Jewel Jones. He got probation. He got probation. I'm happy for him, right? He
told me that he has a good, positive relationship with Rashida Tlaib. He told me that he has nothing against Rashida and that he actually completely understood. He said that Rashida came to him and Kevin Tolbert. Kevin Tolbert is the chair of the 12th Congressional District Party. That he understood it was reasonable, is what he told me, the explanation for the uncommitted movement. But he felt like after Biden got out, she should have adjusted. Of course, Rashida has sent, millions of dollars as part of the most recent appropriations bills to the district. Southfield Redford, Detroit's Cooley High School renovations. Inkster, $500,000 for their Harvest River Square project there for outdoor community space and a market pavilion. So, the things that the pro-business anti-socialists will say, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. She's able to say, well, here's what I did. And I do think a lot of it is personal. I think a lot of it is ideological. And I think a lot of it is, from based on my conversations with a lot of people, frankly, a little racist. And some people are just not willing to not be represented by somebody that they feel like doesn't belong in their community or shouldn't represent them or, what have you. That goes back to the whole...
she's a Zeta now.
Oh, really? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, she's a Zeta.
It's all a part of the, when I talk to certain people in some, perhaps not government officials, but some people, they talk about Wayne County, the Dearborn and Dearborn Heights Arabs. They're trying to take over Black Detroit. And this whole constant thing, this narrative is an evergreen one. It is one that deserves probably more attention in local and national media. The sort of struggle that exists, it plays out in the way that Arab-owned grocery stores are owned and controlled. I mean, Donna, you probably have more. Truly,
who benefits from this? Who benefits?
No one.
The people who benefit are the people who want to oppress us all. If I get mad at every other group of people because some people in their community do things wrong. Now, there are some grocery store owners who do wrong things, no question. But I can't make that all Arab people, just like there's some Black folks who do some bad things, and I can't make that all Black people. We have a tendency to stereotype and to buy into stereotypes against other people. Kim Trent, my friend Kim Trent's son, Jackson Coleman, just wrote an op-ed about that. The fact that we've got to stop leaning into hatred of other people of color. It's not cool. And just because some of them mistreat us doesn't mean that we can, that's not the pathway. I think love is stronger than hate. We should just try to find ways to build understanding. I'm about that. We tried to have Unity breakfast last year. I've done a lot in the work of Unity, wrote an op-ed last year around Unity. And so, Let's just try to move forward, understand that people's feelings are hurt. Black people in Detroit definitely are not represented by a Black person in Congress for the first time in 50 years. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that have nothing to do with Rashida Tlaib. It has to do with where we live right now. Most Black people in Metro Detroit don't live in the city of Detroit. We're dispersed. And so we don't have the same kind of collective voting power. And then we're redistricted. Not saying I would love to have a Black person who represents my values in those seats. And as a matter of fact, there's somebody who's running against Sri Thanadar, Donovan McKinney, who may actually have a chance. We'll see.
You know who else is running, a Black person running against Sri Thanadar? Martell Bivings. I saw him at Morningside Capital. He's a Republican. He's going to run again and probably be the candidate on the other side of Sri Thanadar once it gets to that November ballot. Before we get into our conversation with Charles and Deshaun and Kenny, we want to remind you guys that the 36th District Court has waived late fees. They have waived doing this amnesty program. So if you guys have, I believe parking tickets too, if you guys have late fees on those warrant costs, it's just going to be the price of the original ticket, which that's pretty good. I mean, I have some tickets that I need to pay. So I'm taking advantage of the program myself. You guys, please do not forget that this program is going on now until April 2nd. 36th District Court, they say, is the busiest court in the country. So please, guys, that's what they say. I did a little research on this court before I published this story. It's obviously the busiest court in Michigan. But you go in there and sometimes it is a wait, I feel, for some of those employees there. I know a couple of employees that work there as clerks, and oh my gosh, just the stuff that they go through. So remember to be polite and kind. These are civil servants that you're being attended by. So go to the 36th District Court if you have any warrant costs old speeding tickets, parking tickets that you need to be paid. If you guys get 8 parking tickets, they will boot your car. So do not get 8 parking tickets. Go and pay those. Think of it as, your give back to the city for parking your car. It's pretty easy to park in Detroit.
The city needs to cut down on those tickets. So $45 a ticket is.
It's 45. It's 45. But however,
that's why I said 45.
You can get a city. There is a program for residents, though.
Yeah. If you catch it in time, there's a program for residents. I'm just saying that the city's parking fees are much higher than others places. And so I think that part of the lack of compliance is we are one of the poorest cities. And so when you look at the average Detroiter earning about $37,000 a year, they're just trying to keep the lights on in a lot of instances. And we have high car insurance and high property taxes and high electrical bills. So it's really, really hard for people to make it here. And having parking ticket fees, because there's only a limited time where you can get that discount on your tickets. It's like within the first 40 hours or something, you can get a discount. And it's $22, something like that. It's just too high. I would love to see people, I'd love to see that change. Anyway, we can move on.
Yeah. When we come back, we are going to be talking with Charles Erza Ferrell, Deshaun Jones, and Kenny Green about the Concert of Colors event happening right here on Detroit's East Side, coming at you from my house that I can now say is right here on Detroit's East Side. That feels pretty good, Donna, to say. Keep it locked. We'll be back with Authentically Detroit coming up next.
Interested in renting space for corporate events, meetings, conferences, social events, or resource fairs? The Stoudemire Wellness Hub and Match Detroit Small Business Hub are available for rental by members, residents, businesses, and organizations. We offer rentals for activities such as corporate events, social events, meetings, conferences, art classes, fitness classes, and more. To learn more about our rentals and reserve space, visit ecn-detroit.org/space rental.
The Concert of Colors in Detroit is one of the nation's longest running, largest free global music festival. It is music from around the world at its best. Concert of Colors was established by Ismael Ahmed, the former head of the human services organization Access and New Detroit in 1993, as a one-day event at Chene Park on Detroit's riverfront. The inaugural event drew a modest crowd to Chene Park, but by 1999, some 10,000 music lovers were coming out each year. The festival expanded to 3 days in 2001 when it was part of the official festivities for Detroit's 300th birthday. I wish I could have been there for that. That drew an audience of 100,000 people. In 2019, the concert expanded to 9 days. In 2026, as America marks its 250th anniversary, the Concert of Colors will honor the nation's enduring spirit of unity, creativity, and resilience through its neighborhood programs. Rooted in the belief that art is a bridge between people, this landmark visionary series brings the sound and stories of Detroit's distinctive neighborhoods to life, connecting communities through shared heritage, dialogue, and hope. This project embraces and affirms the power of the arts to unite and uplift. And of course, we are here with Charles Erza Ferrell, Deshaun Jones, and Kenny Green. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Very doing great, man. Happy to be here.
So,
talk to us about. Go ahead, Donna.
Before, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that Ismael Ahmed passed away not too long ago, and so we will be hopefully honoring him and his contributions to justice and to unity in our communities, even on the 28th. I'm sorry, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge him.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And it is true, this year we're celebrating our 35th anniversary. Last year, we were able to gain great support from the state of Michigan, working closely, as we talked about, with our endeared legislators, particularly Senator Stephanie Chang and Mary Kavanaugh, along with Senator Kleinfeld and many others like Amos O'Neill, to achieve additional revenues. The idea is that how do you continue to grow? We talked about the importance of economics in Detroit, and there's, as Donna indicated, at 35, 37K a year, even families of multiple children can't afford to go downtown with the parking and to buy food. So it's incumbent upon organizations to understand the importance of outreach into those areas that are really high viable areas that always had a heartbeat of music and resistance. So we're taking our programs, partnering specifically with important grassroots community-based organizations such as the East Side Community Network. So the Council of Colors partner with the nonprofits who really co-curates our programs, understanding the critical needs and what the music we require in those communities. So obviously, as Donna indicated, having a very close relationship, almost family with an iconic musical figure, three-time Grammy nominated award winner like Deshaun Jones. And I should say that my relationship started in 2012 when I was vice president at the Charles H. Wright Museum, working with the Council of Colors. We featured a Kresge winner like Kenny Green, who can literally transform internal dynamics in a person's well-being through his cosmic music. So this is an outgrowth, the second year now that we've expanded from 5 distinct neighborhoods to 9. I should say at the top that we are very fortunate to have strong funding partners such as the Gilbert Family Foundation, the Kresge Foundation. This year, because of some of the constraints of the Smithsonian in DC, they decided to leave DC and partner with festivals around the United States. So we're partnering with the Smithsonian in terms of culture of, for, and by the people. And they're very sensitive to what we're doing in Detroit and wanted to partner with us. We also have a very strong partner, WDET, so you'll be hearing 2 weeks out on the radio, 8 to 10 times a day, announcements about this program. And finally, 3 of our programs will be broadcast through another major partner, Detroit PBS. So this is an outreach now starting in February, ending in November. I should say that we have an organization that undergirds the Council of Colors, which Ismael started, Ismael Ahmed, with the Urban League, with New Detroit in the early days called the Culture Exchange Network, which allows us to reach the Arab American community, the Irish community, the Italian community, the indigenous community. And you'll see that by going to councilofcolors.com. But it's really not about the Council of Colors. It's about the artists and making certain that we're supporting our innovators, our improvisational artists, and particularly what they bring to the table. I'd like to actually turn the mic over to those who are most important on this call, our artists.
Yes, thank you for doing that. I have some questions. I'll start with you, Deshaun. You are a 3-time Grammy nominee, and you came back home and started the Urban Art Orchestra rather than going somewhere else in the nation. You are back here in Detroit. Talk about your journey and what brought you home or keeps you here.
Well, I think the pride you have from being from Detroit and just understanding what we have as a culture, what we navigate in terms of the way we express our art and our music, is unique, and it's the envy of the world. I've traveled everywhere for the most part over my 20, 30-year career, whatever. And everywhere I go, Detroit gets nothing but love and respect. So for me as an artist, I felt it was important to champion what we have here at home and utilize the skill sets and the relationships and resources that I've accumulated over the years and just try to empower the next generation. I was trained by Marcus Belgrave and Mad Mike Banks of Underground Resistance, the two MBs. A lot of people cannot say that. You know, a lot of people can't say that they got a formal training in traditional jazz, Detroit style, and Detroit techno. Like that's about as quintessential musically as you can get outside of Motown. And then on top of that, I have a strong background in gospel. You know, with the Clark sisters and Karen Clark Sheard. I'm very close with that family. Very, very close to that family. Shout out to Bishop Sheard and First Lady Karen, because they definitely have been holding me up in prayer. I'm not going to get too much into that, but that family means a lot to me when you think about Clark, the last name Clark, Moss, Sheard, because so much of the success that I've been afforded in my career is directly attributed to my relationship with that family and the amazing music that has been produced over the years. I mean, you talk about legacy. For me, it's about legacy. It's about the legacy of Motown. It's about the legacy of Detroit techno. It's about the legacy of Marcus Belgrave. It's about the legacy of Detroit School of Fine and Performing Arts, which I graduated from. Shout out to my band director, who instilled so many foundational principles in me, and that's Ed Quick. He's a phenomenal musician and one of the best, if not the best, educators in the world when it comes to music. You know, studying with him is like for me would be like Quincy Jones studying with Nadia Boulanger in Paris. It's that level of excellence. I did study at Oberlin Conservatory because of Marcus Belgrave. I studied with Donald Walden, the late great Donald Walden. I studied with so many people. So when I look at what they've done, and shout out to Bill Foster, if you know who that is. He's a tremendous figure and pillar in the community. He's been curating events and spaces for arts and culture and for jazz specifically for decades, right? So I got my start at the Serengeti, you know, after school, you know, and working with Njia Kai, who Mama Njia is truly a pillar in our community. And for those who know, they know that she is behind the scenes on every major live production in the city of Detroit and has been for decades. So to have an opportunity to partner with her and to build an orchestra that not only plays music that reaches young people, but includes young people within the process of the production and the performance. I think that we have to keep that legacy alive. And I'm young enough to understand the sensibilities of young people, but I'm old enough and experienced enough to understand how to teach kind of the other side of it. Like there's this thin veil or mystery of like how the industry works, or how do you get a leg up in the world of music and art, and you know, and there's a lot of skills that you have to develop along the way. And so I'm a champion of being well studied. I'm a champion of developing your skills from the fundamentals up. I'm a champion of, you know, putting in your 10,000 hours and then putting in another 10,000 hours before you even expect any results. And I feel that the community that Urban Art Orchestra has fostered over the years is definitely fostering an environment for the next generation of creatives and composers to go out there and compete at a very high level.
Yeah, so, you know, I see you as a bridge, right, between older generations and younger generations, which is amazing. I also want to comment that there seems to be a lot of joy on the stage when you perform. Everybody seems to love what they're doing, and that's infectious. And speaking of joy and infectious, Chene, you have a cosmic music therapy. And that intentionality around making music therapeutic, of course it is. But can you talk about that and how you came to that description of your work?
Yes. It's not as glamorous, or should I say, as forthright as John's story. But certainly, having spent so much time in the business, or in the music, I should say, because I'm less business oriented. But it has brought me to the fact that we can change our environment with our music. As Deshaun mentioned, this is a classic city in terms of music, and the word would be like coming up in an environment such as this is so rich, if you will.
How did you get your start, Chene?
Well, John Coltrane, I heard him one day when I was a child, but I wanted a saxophone. My parents said, "There's nothing happening. We want some food on the table." So that became, excuse me, dream deferred. But back to your first question, being able to distinguish what music can really do, I was led to believe that we could make some changes, some serious changes. I mean, it's no secret that we have a system that's designed to keep us in a cloud, if you will, to keep us outside of our best selves. So when I suspect that our present day ambient background is so charged with man-induced frequencies of commercial intent that those natural frequencies, which our bodies depend on and scream for, lacking, if you will. You know, the frequency of our sun is 7.83 hertz. When we have this happening, we live a richer life. We live a life that's without pain, of suffering, without disease. We have, and it's not just the sun, but everything has a frequency. But what we try to do is try to find the frequencies that are most conducive to good life, conducive to a healthy life. And then more than that, conducive for principle of love, which I heard you mention in your political evaluation. These things are so important that that's the only reason that I exist today now is to be about, how shall I say, transitory activity in terms of our planet and our solar system and our galaxy, and go on to the multiverse and the omniverse. And it's all one. It's all one. And that one is so accessible. So that's my story.
Okay, well, that's amazing. Amazing story. But so your parents, you saw John Coltrane and he encouraged you. And then when did you pick up the saxophone?
I heard John Coltrane and I wanted to pick up the saxophone.
Okay, all right. Okay.
It was not happening. But there was a piano in the house. And I had a brother who was a fine musician, a bassist, along with the fact that most of the Greens played something, they did something musically. So from that standpoint, that's how I got involved. But I had more involvement as I continued to grow. Had a career as a scientist, and that really kind of took me to the other side of it. It was I was not as fortunate as Deshaun to have an opportunity to go to a Detroit School of Music. That was on the books when I was in school. They were talking about it, and to see it happen and see wonderful young musicians like Deshaun and others who come out of this. It's like a wonderful thing, and it really propelled and accelerated our lifestyle here in the city of Detroit, and just because of that.
Yeah. Last week we had the son of Rose Moulton on, Rose, who has the Bloom, oh my goodness, Bloom Healing. I can't remember. Anyway, I went to a sound healing event at her space and took my staff, and the music was the wavelengths of the music really we're supposed to like sort of change our cellular structure or something like that. I don't really know, but is that when you say you're a scientist? Are there some scientific aspects of the music that we should understand?
But only that it too is a high science that happened and as a gift from our Creator. And once again, if you have a knowledge of our Creator and understanding, then you know that everything is all one. It's one energy source. And it can be changed and rearranged, but not destroyed. So with that oneness, then we can find the principles of not just music, but everything else that's here. If you look into it, and we've already found out that our progenitors, people from our past, specifically like the old schools in Kemet, they knew these things, and they used these things, and they heal with these things. And they also had working societies where people were not bellicose. We find now, and you guys mentioned some of the things about Netanyahu, who I think is like the scourge of the earth, because, well, I'm not going to get into it. But the point that I'm making, though, is that music can heal, not just physically, but mentally and in every other kind of way you can heal. I'm not that versed in any of those things. I did more environmental science, but what it did was gave me a bench, a place to look at everything I do from a different perspective. And that perspective, amazing. Again, yeah, what's amazing is the music. It's given to us to heal. It's given to us to feel. It's given to us to direct and guide. But we take the easy way out. Oh, I should say not easy, but the fun way. The hips and thighs is always ready when we hear a nice rhythm. So, and that's easy to get locked into. And I'm not mad at nobody for doing it. But when we pull back the curtain, we find that it's much more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having both, the healing and then this really joyful aspect that I see with urban arts, because I think I get as much joy watching you conduct and watching the young people, because it's a pretty diverse group that you are leading, isn't it, Sean?
Well, first and foremost, it's all Detroiters. So Detroit is a diverse city. Yeah. It's a Black city, but it still has a lot of representation of a lot of different cultures. So music, for me, I'll say this as an aside. A couple of things. One, I completely agree with everything that Kenny is saying. And understanding frequencies and understanding the nuance of frequency and how they interact with us and how we interact with it is really a deep science and is the higher level of understanding music, in my opinion. Yeah. And I talked to my orchestra mates and members about that, and understanding certain frequencies, like understanding where your instrument lies and lives, and we have dynamic ranges like saxophone, violin, piano, obviously kind of covers everything from 40 hertz all the way up to, I don't know, past 10K. But the bottom line for me is the healing aspect of the music is universal no matter what the genre is, as long as the intent and the messaging behind it is positive. That's what's going to come across and that's what's going to be conveyed. And I feel like if you're feeling a sense of joy when you see us perform, it's because everybody on that stage genuinely loves what they're doing and is genuinely there for the sake of the music and also for the sake of the city. Because we understand that what we're doing is a public service. Mm-hmm. I understand that our position in the community is a position of servitude. Like, we need to bring live strings and instrumentation to the east side and to the west side. And it was good to do things downtown and midtown, and that's all well and fine. But when I was in school, I always felt like the best musicians and the most gifted artists always came from Deep East and Deep West. So there's a there's a sense of outpour and outreach. Like, I think that young musicians and young talent will be attracted to. My grandma always said this. She always says, you attract more bees with honey than vinegar, right? So I want the orchestra conceptually to be inviting and open to any and everyone who has a creative mind, a creative spirit, and is disciplined enough to actually. Uh-oh. Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Yeah. So I lost my train of thought, but I think essentially what I was getting at is that part of the community service is to make ourselves available and accessible. And part of it is us going out to different spaces and places and partnering with, different organizations. Concert of Colors has become a partner of ours. In fact, I'll say this. The last concert that we did with Amp Fiddler before he passed away was Concert of Colors. So Concert of Colors, and if you know about Amp Fiddler, if you know who this man is, he literally
and
was
brother
physical
as well.
and Bub. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He Amp was like kind of the living, breathing embodiment of what both Kenny and I are talking about when it comes to this music and when it comes to being an ambassador on behalf of the city of Detroit, culturally.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've lost some giants, man. Rest in peace, Amp. We love you. But I also want to say that the orchestra is a part of Amp Fiddler's legacy, who always reached out to young musicians and took them on tour and put them in spaces and places that they had never imagined they'd be before. So I know that I have a role as a bridge, because I'm not that old. You know what I'm saying? I've just been around a lot of OGs, and
just a giant, that's all.
But you know what? You're not. But you know what I respect about you, Deshaun, is that you respect the people who came before you and you honor them and bring them forward in what you do. Sometimes people talk about the generational divide, and it's so damaging to our community that that we don't see each other and the value each other brings. And I think you do a good job with that.
Yeah. Well,
I agree. He does a bang-up job. And what you just said is really important, because he weaves everything together. Cats old like me, we just have nothing but respect for Deshaun, because he's in the now. It's reaching, like you say, young, old, tall, short. And he covers it.
Well, one of the things about Detroit music and music in general as relates to the political context is that the instrument becomes a vehicle for the artist to demonstrate what they're going through and their feelings. So when you see the whole transition of music from the enslavement songs of Paul Robeson to the spirituals to the blues, in certain cities like Detroit, are resistance cities. So you see how bebop becomes one of these elements. And why does everything come out of Detroit musically? And what are they saying? What we have here represented on March 28th in a church in St. Bonaventure at 1780 Mount Elliott, across from historic Elmwood Cemetery, is a rebirth. We're talking about Kenny today, not about death. The concept in the African tradition of birth and rebirth is that what they're playing is improvisational music. It's all filling, and there's it's playing from the heart, and they're playing off of each other. I just want to say one thing, and sitting in the Charles Wright Auditorium when Kenny was playing music, I looked around at the audience, and everyone was in a trance. Everyone had left their concerns and was somewhere else, because the music has transported them. And so, this is why it's called the Freedom and Healing Music Festival. Now, when Deshaun walked into place today, he clapped his hands to be able to understand the sound and that particular space and how it bounced off, to determine how to compose. And this would be his first creative composition in 2026 that he's going to compose for this event. So it's a historical space. Everyone should come out to this who is able to hear this podcast and experience what real Detroit music is, and the vision of the East Side Community Network as it partners with the Council of Colors. Yeah. It's really a celebration of Detroit.
So.
Before we get into our shout outs, I want to ask Deshaun, you were talking about the range of sound and fitting into, the entirety of an ensemble. I want to ask, as somebody that I had played baritone and tenor saxophone in middle school and high school, how did you land on tenor as your saxophone of choice? I could imagine you've probably been around the entire woodwind section at this point in your life, but what was it about the tenor sax that inspired you? I remember, the influences growing up that I had that drew me to loving the saxophone, falling in love with jazz, but I wanted to kind of hear your origin story with that.
I mean, the tenor is a grown man's instrument, straight up. Like, if you choose to play tenor, ain't no half stepping. Not with that instrument. And the same thing with Barry. Barry is a real, like, what they call it, grits and gravy. That's what some of the OGs have said when it comes to the way that you approach the instrument. So when I started out on alto. My dad got me my first saxophone, and I just took to it. I listened to a lot of smooth jazz growing up. So like there was like a lot of Nelson Rangel, Everett Harp. Who else did I check out? I mean, a lot of these people that were signed to GRP record label at the time. Oh, Eric Marienthal. Like, I'm a student of the game. I love this music so much. So I can list names of people that I was checking out. These were all like alto players and flautists. But then I got introduced to Charlie Parker. And I said, oh, I don't want to listen to smooth jazz no more. I want to hear this. And then I got introduced to John Coltrane, Giant Steps, the LP. And once I heard that, I said, oh, I don't know what that is. Oh, he's got a curved saxophone. I need that saxophone because I'm trying to sound like that. And it just, when I think a couple years into playing is when I actually transitioned into tenor saxophone. And I never looked back because that instrument is so uniquely positioned in terms of like frequency and range. Like it can sound like a human voice. It can sound as high as a trumpet. It can sound low like a Barry. Like you can do all these different things. And then when you get into the multiphonics of the horn, so that's a Pharoah Sanders or I'm trying to think. I mean, a lot of the latter Coltrane. If you get into that, like there's so many different frequencies and emotions that you can convey through the tenor saxophone. So I got real fortunate, man. I'm one of the few guys whose entire career was basically built off of one instrument. And I love the tenor. And my son he's playing saxophone. My oldest son, he'll be 15 this year. And he's learning giant steps, similar to what his dad did around the same age. And hopefully, if he really takes to it, I'm going to transition him off of his alto and give him one of my tenors and see what he's talking about. But the tenor has such a lineage. Like, it's not just about John Coltrane, but you got to get some David Fathead Newman in there too. You got to get some real sound in your sound. And, of course, he was on a lot of Motown records, just, of course, with him and Hank Crawford and Marcus Belgrave and all those people. But, like, the tenor is one of those uniquely positioned instruments that can capture the dynamic range of sound from low to high. And that's what I love about it the most. I think you're muted, brother.
I just wanted to also talk about the importance of music when we talk about social change. Like, I'm all politics, right? I'm very much into politics. But you don't get social change by people talking about politics alone. There's always the music. There's always the art that drives social change. It gets people to see things differently. And the Concert of Colors has an intent of bringing people together. So it's not just music for music's sake, right? But there's music for the point with the intent of driving or this sense of community. Can you talk about that a little bit more, Charles? What your ultimate aim is?
Sure. So we actually working on a new project called Youth Movement Music, remembering the impact of Sam Cooke's "Change Is Gonna Come," or James Brown "Say It Loud, I'm Black, I'm Proud," or the Curtis Mayfield impressions, "Move On Up." A lot of ways of making certain that the music is always tied to social struggle. You don't see, work on a chain gang, you don't see any movement without there being music associated with it. And that's what I'm saying about the vitality of Detroit, but we certainly want to give voice to every culture. So
Yes.
I'll just say right after this program that we're doing with East Side, we're at Spotlight with the indigenous community, listening to their music, even though they have embraced hip hop. It's very interesting, the power of African-American music. Our latest program in November is at the Ford Community Performing Arts Center. There's a Syrian artist doing also a version of hip hop. So, I mean, that has, you see where how there's a underground funnel of the impact of African art across the culture as it expands globally. So, this is a global construct. Detroit is an international city, and it's at the height of culture, and it continues to live through this type of music. I'm saying that the root structure is the politics and the environment that drives forth people to want to create hip hop or every major genre. We talked about Amp Fiddler, techno, the blues. That you can't think of any genre that doesn't have a strong root system within Detroit. In fact, we're looking at the NDA Jazz Masters and all the jazz masters that come out of Detroit. Fundamentally, it's about filling, and that's why you see the strong bass players, the bottom in Detroit. So this is a really fascinating project when you talk about a universal language. And when you play music, the children also have a propensity to understand foreign language, to understand math, because it's abstract thinking. It's a lot of complexity that's taking place in that creative process. So when you say politics, you can't separate it from the music.
No, you can't, but a lot of people do. A lot of people put music here as recreation and, other things here, but musicians are philosophers, right? Musicians are more than just people playing music. It's just that this is their way of expressing the philosophy. My husband is an artist, Charles. And
of course.
Yes.
I just started to walk behind you.
Yes, you did. And his intelligence is great, and his expression is art. And so I think it's always helpful for people to remember my mother was an artist, right?
Well, I think everyone is an artist, really.
Well, but I mean, my mother was I'm actually writing a book, right? And that's my art. But I'm excited. And you know what? Kevin is painting the cover of my book. So it's going to be, one of it's a dual project, but a visual artist, somebody who my mother drew, she painted, she did the same things. And so I grew up understanding the value of art. And I love the idea of this concert bringing people together.
Absolutely.
I really think it's going to do a great job. I'm really excited to get the healing sounds. Like I said, I was not aware of music in the healing properties until I went there with a friend. After I lost my mom, I went to it's Bloom Transformation Center, and I went to the sound bath, and it was walked out, and I felt like a different person. I know that we're going to get some of that healing going on the 28th. And Deshaun had to drop off, but I want to thank him as well. And Charles, I want to thank you for bringing this to us and introducing us to Chene.
Well, thank you. I just want to mention to the global aspect of Chene's work, there are some tuning bowls, some gongs, very global music. One of his artists went over to Bali to learn. So this is a really global musical experience that I think everyone will be transformed by. And I really appreciate the opportunity of the Council of Colors partnering with a grassroots organization of having so much social impact as the East Side Community Network.
Yeah, may I say that I'd like to applaud the efforts of Council of Colors for being wise enough to find Charles. Charles is a very unique individual who great things to our cultural lives here in Detroit. If you take a list of some of the performances that he brought to bear at the museum, it would blow your mind back. It's it's across the board. But so thanks, Council of Colors. You did the right thing this time.
Yeah, I'm also very happy to learn about the great work of Sam Robinson and his power of youth and journalism and taking forth a whole nother important area of work. Thank you, Sam.
Well, I appreciate it, Charles. I appreciate you guys for joining us so much. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to sign off with our weekly shout-outs.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Winter classes have started at the Stoudemire Wellness Hub. From chair yoga and strength-based fitness to nutrition, cooking, and wellness-focused classes, there's something for every person and every starting point. At the Stoudemire, our hope is to offer movement, nourishment, and community to support you throughout the cold season. Learn more at ecn-detroit.org/classes or give us a call at 313-571-2800.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Charles Erza Ferrell, Deshaun Jones, and Kenny Green. If you guys have topics or guests that you want to discuss on Authentically Detroit, feel free to hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or visit our website at authentically-detroit.com. Now it's time for shout-outs. Let's start with you, Donna. Is there anybody that you would like to shout out this week?
There is. I'm shouting out Jackson Coleman, the son of Ken Coleman and Kim Trent, good friends. Jackson wrote an article that was published in the Free Press entitled "Black People Shouldn't Praise Kendrick and Trash Bad Bunny." And what he's really talking about is the fact that cultural celebration and our right to be on the big stage is something we should all celebrate, even if we don't understand the music, even if we don't understand the words. And that it's very narrow-minded, that when we all come together and celebrate each other, it's beautifully written. He's a high school student. He was an intern at ECN last year. And I got to say, I'm just proud of Jackson for just not just how well he wrote, but also his the way he thinks and the way he just embraces other people.
Yeah, that is really awesome. I saw that headline and a lot of love in the comments for him. I wanted to shout out this week, Malachi Barrett announced that he will be leaving. He has left Bridge Detroit. He is going to be the Detroit Fire Department's newest firefighter. Malachi has been a reporter professionally for 10 years. I started my career with Malachi at M Live. We had been, sort of partners, colleagues, never working together on the same beat, but oftentimes getting mixed up. People would call me Malachi and people would call Malachi Sam, not knowing what we look like. Not anything close to one another, but it would still happen. I really appreciate Malachi's work ethic. He set a standard for all of us that really has been unmatched. People will come up to me and say, thank you for my reporting. I say, okay, well, have you heard of Malachi Barrett? He's been a gold standard for me. Is really a terrific person. I know a lot of you guys just know him through his byline, but he's really one of the best people that I've ever met. And this decision from him to leave journalism at this time, sort of at the height of his powers, he owns the city council beat, right? Nobody comes close. And for him to say, I'd rather sacrifice my life to help other people in need speaks to who he is. So my shout out today goes to Malachi Barrett. Kenny, Charles, anybody that you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to the everlasting spirit and impact of Ismael Ahmed, our founder and executive director of the Council of Colors, who had deep roots in Detroit. He was one of the most significant institution builders who founded Access, which is the largest social services organization in the country for Arab Americans. He founded the Arab American National Museum. He served as Director of Human Services under two governors, and really transformed and worked on behalf of the poor in that capacity. He served as the University of Michigan provost. He was elected under two presidents to serve on the National Council of the Arts. Most importantly, he's a very trusted and a good friend who was recognized at many organizations such as APEP in New York for his ability to have a vision to power through and bring community together around music, making certain also that food played a role, the different cultural foods, as a foundation for conversation. So I'm deeply impacted by the relationship, and the expansion into their neighborhoods is a good transformational growth opportunity for the Council of Colors to extend his legacy. I'm very thankful for all of you.
Beautiful tribute. Yes, beautiful. Kenny, anybody that you'd like to send a shout out to?
No, I am also, as Charles said, I'm thankful for the four of you, the five of you, Sean. It's been an exhilarating experience for me. I can't shout out one person without having to include several others, so I'm going to pass.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you on the 28th. I'm really excited about this concert. And yeah.
2:00, 2 p.m., St. Bonaventure Chapel at Solanas Center at 1780 Mount Elliott. Welcome everyone, free and open to the public. But you do have to go online and register Eventbrite at Eastside Community Network's website. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys. We want to thank all of you. I'm definitely going to share that Eventbrite link to my platforms. Thanks for joining us, everyone listening in. Seriously, we so appreciate you helping our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We will talk to you guys next week on Authentically Detroit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.